Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a good day, making some good art, doing some fun things. I think you can definitely tell how awkward I am. But anyway, today I wanted to talk in general about motivating yourself as an artist. Both in general and motivating yourself to do art when you have depression or anxiety, things like that. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't struggle with motivation for art, and I feel like me as someone who does, that kind of stresses me out. It makes it even harder for me to get motivated because I'm watching all these other people and it comes to them so easily. Like, they just do art all the time. Like, that's what they do. That's when they're bored, when they don't know what else to do, when they're waiting for someone, they just make art. And for me, it's not like that. Like, I don't have a bank of poses in my head. I don't have like a bank of what animals look like or like what things look like. I can draw bottles from memory pretty well. Not realistically. I can do the shape of a bottle like Mirandy type style. But that's pretty much it. And even those bottles, Mirandy type style, still look better when I'm actually drawing them from something. So it can be pretty intimidating to try and make yourself feel like you need to be motivated all the time. You need to be doing art all the time, especially if you're going to art school. You have to be doing art all the time. You have, class assignments and stuff like that. And I think that can add to it too, because you're doing art all the time and you always have a prompt. You always have something that you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't have homework all the time. You are going to class, 3 to 5 days a week, and you're just there, you're just doing stuff. So then summer hits, or, things start wrapping up, a break happens, any of those things. Maybe you're graduating, I don't know, but, you find yourself not motivated to make anything, not inspired to make anything. And that can be really scary, especially if you spend like 9 months just making things, or even if it's just like making things for yourself. If you've been on this role making things for yourself and then all of a sudden finals came, you did finals, and then afterward you're like burnt out, or like even pre-finals. You can feel burnt out on your own art in the midst of everything that you have to do for school. And that can be really terrifying and stressful and not fun. And that's kind of where I am a little bit. I've been making a lot of things, doing a lot of things for class and on my own, and I just really like materials, and I've been playing with that, but I don't know what to make with the materials, and I don't really have any visions of anything to do, and that's really difficult. But I think that more than just that, motivating yourself to do anything at all can be very trying. Just like telling yourself to just make art, especially when you don't have an idea of anything to do, you don't have any inspiration, is really hard. And like, I think that for me, the number one thing that I use to motivate me is knowing it's kind of like one of those fear-based motivations, which I know doesn't work for everyone, but especially someone who has anxiety, sometimes that works best for me. But like, knowing that my skill is gonna go down if I don't keep doing things is like a really big motivation for me to keep trying. And also, like, on a positive side of that, when you reflect back on what you did a year ago and how much better you got purely because you keep on doing it over and over and over. Even if you're not practicing on a specific thing, or looking at your past pieces might do that for you. You might look at this past piece and be like, oh, this is so good. Look at the piece now and be like, the way that I tilt the head, or the color that I put on the side of the face or something like that, like, is just a little bit off. And it's off in the old one's off in the new one. This new one's so much better, but I really want to work on that. And that is something that you can use to motivate yourself to keep going. And that's amazing. If you can find that, that is so great. If you can't find something like that, you look at your old stuff, you look at your new stuff, you're like, yeah, I haven't really seeing any progress, I just keep doing it, then that can, that can add to even more of this lack of motivation, which then, it's kind of like, you have to think into yourself and be like, well, why am I making art in the first place? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this if it's just, stressful for me, or just like, if I don't love it, which usually if you're an artist, you'll be like, okay, well, I do love it. There's so many reasons why I love it. Let me just, go into this in myself and think about this more. And that's, something really powerful, is like going back to your roots, thinking about why you're an artist. It can motivate you so much. And not only that, it can be the inspiration for art pieces and things like that. I know at one point I got into a class where we got to do whatever we wanted. You just had to make still lifes. And I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. Like, I want to paint like myself, but I don't know what that means anymore, because we've been painting the way our teachers told us for so long that I had no idea what painting like me was. So I talked to my teacher about it and stuff, and I was like looking back at stuff that I was doing in high school and stuff and all of this, and I was like, let me try with the skills I have now to basically replicate the things that I was doing in high school. So, I did that. I tried, and it turned out to actually really lead me to finding this new thing that I really liked. Like, I didn't end up sticking with the style that I did in high school. Actually, the stuff that I ended up doing, it was kind of very dissimilar to the things that I was doing in high school, but at the same time it had the same feeling to it. And it was extremely inspired by going back to my roots, going back to that stuff that I did, these really high color pieces with this intense texture and everything. And so, it transformed into this thing, which was a much more sparing use of color and a much bigger focus on texture and things like that. But I would never have discovered that unless I went back and thought, what did I really enjoy about high school? What did I really like? And try and replicate what I was doing in those paintings. And then I realized from that, I really like texture. And I used pretty much the same texture over and over again in high school, but let's see what I can do to create different textures. And I also enjoyed, the material, the thickness and thinness that you can get from paint. So let's see if I can play around with that too. And then, of course, I mixed in there, I love these bright colors, I love colorful pieces. Well, and then I was thinking, what about that did I like? Did I really just like bright colors, or did I like this quirky use of color, and you just you ask yourself all these questions, and eventually you get to a point where you're doing the things that you want to do or interested in doing. You find it. All in all, it's just important to go back to your roots, especially for motivation and inspiration's sake. But it is not the end all be all, and sometimes with motivation and inspiration, there's another thing that's keeping you from being able to do that. And, well, for me, and I know many, many other artists, many other people in general, depression and anxiety are some of those factors, as well as obsessive compulsive disorder, paranoia, things like any mental illness, even just an emotional time, even if you're not suffering from a mental illness, these things can highly impair your motivation and inspiration. And that doesn't happen for everyone. I know there's plenty of people that their inspiration comes from their mental illness and they're motivated to do artwork because it helps them fight their mental illness. But for me, when I'm depressed and when I'm highly, highly anxious, like, all I can do is, lay in bed or continuously think about what I'm not doing. And usually art is at the way back of my mind, and it doesn't do it for me. And so what do I do during these times to try and motivate myself? The answer really is, sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes that's just not what I'm concerned about. And sometimes you just have to give yourself a break and be like, so I'm not motivated today. So what? Look at all the artwork you've made and just be like, taking one day off isn't going to kill me. Let me just feel what I'm feeling and not try and push myself. And other times I just think to myself, art makes me happy. Art is something that came from a place of happiness. I didn't start doing it because I was sad. I didn't start doing it, any of these things. I have a lot of behaviors that I developed because of depression and anxiety, but art isn't one of those for me. And so I remind myself that art has always been a source of happiness. And even when I'm suffering from depression, anxiety, and nothing can really make me happy in those moments, especially the height of my anxiety. Depression's a little bit different. Depression baseline, nothing makes me happy, but with anxiety, it's the height of my anxiety, nothing can make me happy. And in those moments, I'm like, okay, so it's not going to make you, feel 100% better. It's not going to make you feel like you're on top of the world, but maybe for a minute, it'll let you breathe. Maybe for a minute, you'll be like, this reminds me of a memory when I was happy. This gives me a little bit of a feeling of happiness, of relief, just a little bit of a feeling of anything other than those things. And that for me is really what I can do to convince myself to do art in those times, is the possibilities that art will somehow trigger something inside of me to feel a little sense of relief from what's going on, what's wrong. Or even for a minute, maybe I'll be so wrapped up in trying to get this line straight that I can't think about everything that's giving me anxiety. Maybe for a second, my obsessive compulsive thought about something, maybe that'll go away because all I'm thinking about is, wow, this proportion is really, really off. And that can be a sense of relief. So, yeah, that is kind of where I get my motivation from to do art, in both normal times and times of depression and anxiety. And also a little bit of inspiration thrown in there. So I hope that this is a little bit helpful to anyone kind of going through it, anyone struggling to find motivation, anyone, struggling to stay inspired to keep doing art. Just for them to know that it's something that people struggle with. It might not seem like it, but it is. And there's ways that you can get around it. So, I hope everyone has a good one, and I'll talk to you guys again later.